This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel.
Wow. What an intro.
Song in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel.
Very good.
It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
That was fantastic.
The most consequential week in American soccer history, boys and girls. You lived it, you experienced it, and now the games begin. It could not be a better time to be a soccer fan in America. Mike, Nick, guys, how are you?
What's up?
I'm doing a lot better now. Thank you for serenading us for that intro. That was beautiful.
I could have done without it, but shout out to you.
That was nice.
Is there a copyright issue there?
I
Yes,
don't think
but
so.
we're fine. We're good.
No. That rendition, you made it your own, so it's fine.
I could get sued for how bad it was.
Nah, it was
Anyways.
great.
I know you did a lot of research on Miami, looking back at their past couple of games. I know we could go back and examine the tough stretch for the Revs through the month of May. I don't think anything else matters today.
Yeah.
I really don't think anything else matters. For 15 years, we have waited for this moment, for the best soccer player in the world, whether it be Cristiano Ronaldo, whether it be Messi, whether it be Neymar. That name, that face, we have waited for this moment for that greatest player that crosses over not just soccer, but all sports in general, to come to this league. And that moment has finally arrived. And yes, you can talk about David Beckham, and you can talk about all the things that David Beckham brought in during MLS 1.5 to 2.0. We are now entering MLS 4.0 here today.
Oh, doubled up.
You jumped it.
Love that. I don't think you're wrong.
I definitely don't think you're wrong.
MLS 3.0 was the expansion era.
Okay.
This is the super team era. This is the era that everything changes now. I truly believe it. If I'm wrong, you can mark the tape and you can mock me all you want for the next few decades.
And Tom will go back at you on Twitter. Don't worry about it. Trust.
A lot
We
of
will-
people taking notes as we speak.
Trust
but
and
that's-
believe.
But that's good.
We will address the Lebitard audience today.
Oh.
Isn't that your guy?
Dan Lebitard? No, Dan Patrick.
Dan
Got
Patrick.
it. My
Dan
bad.
Patrick
My bad.
guy.
Sorry. It was not someone on the show?
Other guy. Also Dan Patrick.
Okay, my
also
bad,
Dan
my bad.
Patrick.
Got it.
A legend in the game, though.
I look at the Messi era and the Beckham era two different ways. The Beckham era opened up the door business-wise for MLS. The Messi era is going to open the door globally for MLS.
That's
And
the word. The word is global.
Yes, and there's
Yes.
two things that make the Messi era different than what the Beckham era was. Do you know what those two things are?
Social media
One,
being one of them. Streaming services, I guess.
okay, fine, we'll go three then.
1.5. I don't know. Strike me. I'm striking out here.
Sports betting.
Sports betting is a good one. I was going to say influx of players too. I think this move is going to, and we'll get to all of this stuff, but this move is going to open up the floodgates for players. Now they're going to see this more as a legitimate league. They're going to want to play with or against Messi to try to pilot this up themselves back to a bigger league. Like this really does. It's a huge game changer.
It is, and I think, it is absolutely. I think we still need to temper our expectations. I had some conversations, very cordial, a lot more cordial than the ones that were coming at Tom, which they were just hating for no reason. Because you did have great points, and we had the receipts. Shout out to Michelle Kaufman. But I think the conversations that are being had are from the quote-unquote casual fans or the people who are not even into soccer at all. Beckham did a great job taking it and had a lot of people asking me, is this like the Beckham situation? In a way, yes, because what Beckham did was he brought a name, a global name.
Way more eyes,
to the
way
league.
more seats will be filled because of it. Yes.
Every stadium, every team will benefit when Inter Miami is in town. Facts. But what the difference is with the Messi thing is when Beckham came to Los Angeles Galaxy, he was on the tail end of his career. You know, he was never a great player, did some amazing things in his career. Never could sniff Messi's shin pads, okay? Messi and Beckham are completely different levels. And let's not forget Messi is, 7 months out from winning a World Cup and being the best player in that tournament on top of that.
Yeah,
So,
you're talking about someone who, again, you can debate it, but his name is always in the conversation for greatest of
all time. And
Yeah.
is still in the conversation as the best player in the world
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, not
But I think you're correct, sorry, about social media and sports betting. That is a huge part of this now that obviously wasn't then. Way more eyes are going to be on it. And again, I know I saw people going back you on this to say that the Apple deal is not A, part of it, or B, going to make this bigger is also wrong because
They were
it
proven
is.
wrong.
Exactly. Well, it is.
And we'll get to that in a second, because we got Chris Wittyngham coming up from MLS Season Pass today. We'll talk to him about that. But just to keep it on the difference between Messi and Beckham and why Messi's bigger, and I'm going to die on this hill. I agree with you. The playing style, I think Beckham, even though he did play, I think he played with Milan and PSG after he left LA Galaxy, so he did have a little bit of a
tour.
Yeah.
Farewell tour.
I loved watching David Beckham, by the way. I loved watching. He was a great outside midfielder. It's not to take anything away from that, but I think if you would ask him, he'd say the same thing. It's just it's a different conversation now.
And the game was in a different place in this country 12, 15 years ago when David Beckham was doing what David Beckham was doing in America. Now you have a whole generation of kids that watch soccer week in and week out. A lot of these kids know who Messi is. A lot of these people over the age of 50 know who Messi is.
Especially, to Mike's point, after the World Cup. If they didn't, they definitely know now.
They definitely know now. So this is now the moment. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I think that this makes MLS better than the Barclays Premier League, La Liga. We're not saying that.
It will take about a century for them to become equal.
Yeah,
and I mean that respectfully.
Same. That we almost shouldn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
That kind of denigrates what our show is going to be about today. We don't want to do that.
But we talked to somebody last night, and we appreciate the Refs for having us out for the Bowl for a cause
Awesome
event.
night.
Shout out.
Awesome event. Great fundraising event to raise a ton of money.
We talked to somebody last night. MLS has now proven itself. Hey, you don't have to go to Mexico to go build yourself up and then take that next step into Europe. This is the launching pad now. This is like Messi coming here is going to, I believe, bring in the cachet of the Angel Di Marias, which we're already seeing that name thrown around to bring in for Miami here. You'll get a lot of the guys that are on their way out of their careers that will probably look to come over here because it's that American do, re, mi, fa, sol, li, do. But
I don't know if you can use that one either, but that's okay.
really?
No, probably you're okay.
Public domain.
But I also think a lot of young kids will look at this and say, well, if Messi's going to America, I want to see what it's all about. And then you see, and then now that goes back to the social media aspect where they see where Messi's living. They see Miami. They see that American lifestyle. And if you had to choose between, let's be honest, Mexico City or downtown Miami, Florida.
Where he already has a residence, by the way.
Yeah.
And his family lifestyle is better there.
We learned that on this show.
We did learn that on the show. We also have to keep in mind that Messi was offered $1.5 billion with the B to go play in Saudi Arabia. He turned it down for many reasons. He says, "Fine, money is not the issue. He has plenty of it in his life. He wanted a better lifestyle, clearly for his family." Barcelona, the dream to go back to the club that he made a name for himself. They put an offer on the table. He declined it. He could have stayed in Paris if you think Paris was going to say bye to Messi? No. So these are all top clubs, top money that he could have made and played. He still could be competing in the Champions League next year, potentially winning another European championship if he wanted to. And he made the active decision to play for Inter Miami. Did a large portion of it, from what we've been reading and from what he's been saying, had to do with his family and doing what's best for his family, for sure. Did the Apple inclusion and the Adidas inclusion on all the merchant, making a profit off of all of the sales for Inter Miami kits? Does that play a part of it? Adidas, Apple TV, MLS, and Inter Miami were all involved in bringing him here, and he still, he made a decision to come here at the end of the day when he could have went somewhere else.
I think a big part of the deal, too, that I think a lot of people are downplaying is the fact that he's got off until 2024. Like as much as we're going crazy about the Messi debut, it's not happening this Saturday versus the New England Revolution.
Wish it was. That would have been wild.
He's still going to get 35,000 people in Gillette Stadium this weekend, though.
Which was before, by the way, they were expecting over 30,000 before the Messi announcement. So this is not.
You could still see 40 this weekend, which would be wild.
The hype might have increased it, but there was already expecting over 30,000.
It is so interesting, though. Again, early on, and again, we're reacting to this 24 hours out, but that place, meaning Gillette Stadium this weekend, would be full. And it's going to be.
Yeah.
There are teams that are going to have to build new structures now because one player is coming to the league. It's a huge deal.
And they have until 2024 to put it together.
Yes.
Because Messi, and I think that's part of it, because I think if you would have went to Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabians would have said, get your ass out there immediately. He wouldn't have had, I think the time off to be able to let his body
rest.
rest.
This year, though, I believe.
I don't know. I mean.
I think I believe he will.
September-ish?
No, because he's still technically in contract with PSG until June 30th. So he has till the end of the month. I'm assuming there's going to be some transition period, moving here, getting situated, doing the introduction, the official signing, getting fit, getting to know the club. I don't see why he can't be playing by August.
I know this is where we want it to go, but what happens if they're still in last place? Why wouldn't he just wait till next year?
I would wait till next year if I'm him. I would just let my body recover. I would just. And here's the
Believe
thing.
me, I want him to be there this week. That's not my. If you're asking me, I wish it was there now. But there are clubs.
The clubs are prepping for it now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at the resale tickets for Red Bulls versus Inter Miami, resale tickets are $2,000. It's like, resale tickets for a New York Knicks game.
Cheaper to go to the NBA Finals right now than it is to go to a Chicago Fire game against, the Inter Miami.
If we're being honest, more buzz around this than the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm sorry. This is
put
more
together.
important.
The only other, there was just Live Golf and PGA.
Live Golf was the only.
But think about that. What a week. I mean,
huge sports week.
You want to talk
Thank God for MLS. MLS beat the Saudis, at least for Messi. So at least we got that. PGA, what are you doing?
One on the board. We got one on the board this week
but
against Saudi
I think,
Arabia.
if you put the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals and you multiply it by 10, it still is not coming close to what the buzz that all this is.
When you have local news here leading with Messi coming to Inter Miami, when do they, outside of the World Cup, when are you ever seeing that? No disrespect to local news.
No, and now that's going to make a local news head story when he does come to town. Like, this is just.
It's going to be like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Be like Swift-ageddon.
Except, on somehow an even bigger scale.
What are you going to call it?
Messi Mania.
Ooh.
That's not, you know what, Tom? That's not bad.
I like that.
That's not bad. I was expecting.
What you gonna do when Messi Mania runs wild on you?
I mean,
what are we doing on this show this week?
It is going. Here's where I do think
Singing. We got impressions. I don't. Yeah. What am I doing here?
If I am MLS, maybe I want him out there for the All-Star game. DC United, you're playing against Arsenal.
Hey, no, it's possible.
National TV game. You don't got to keep him out there for longer than a half hour. Just let him go out there, run around, maybe get a goal.
Nobody cares about the All-Star game, so maybe
but
this is why
it's a
people
reason
care.
why to get people to watch it.
It's it is a reason to get people to watch it.
And it's a reason to get people to get excited about MLS.
Let's keep in mind, Messi has an interest in viewership these days because of the MLS season pass.
That's a huge part of it too that I don't think is being talked enough. Like, this isn't, again, no disrespect to Mr. Beckham, this isn't a come over here and I'm going to just sit on the sideline.
Just show up.
He needs eyes, so he needs to play because it's a part of the package.
Exactly. He needs to be on the field because if people are subscribing to MLS season pass, which you should, but if they are and they're not seeing Messi on the field, what the hell? They'd be like, what am I paying for? Mm-hmm. To some of the global audience that are paying specifically for Messi. So he's going to be out there as soon as he can. I think, from what I've been seeing, nothing's set in stone yet, but I would believe you will see him in 2023. You will I
would be shocked.
Yeah.
I kind of would too, but I'm not against it. I would love it.
I'm pretty sure you will be seeing him because the MLS season goes until the fall. He's used to
they
playing.
don't come here.
He's
again,
used to
right?
playing 10 months
Miami.
a year.
This is it for Miami.
You go to Miami.
I mean, think about it. Messi's used to playing 100 games a year. Playing all tournaments from August until June.
Yeah, I guess it's the match congestion plus. I think leaving Paris probably.
There's nothing more congested than the European soccer schedule.
No, you're right about that. You're
Two
right
league
about
games
that.
a week sometimes with the top of cup games,
cup or
domestic
league
cup games.
whatever.
Then you got the European Cup games.
But don't you want the best version of Messi possible?
He's always the best version.
Tom.
A guy like that doesn't need rest and
No,
recovery.
if he was out there this weekend, you'd get 100%.
Yeah.
Like this is the best player ever.
I don't know if I'd have him out there playing for
Arguably.
90 minutes this weekend. But
I mean, the Saudi league is still going on, and you still got
We're gonna
guys-
do this. It doesn't matter what you want. It's if he wants to play, he's gonna play. If he wants to play 90 minutes or 9 minutes, this is what it happens.
MLS is changing their rules and they're turning a blind eye to a lot of these things.
well,
because
that's
it is him.
the other thing that gets me annoyed because
There would be something in this. Go ahead.
Well, 2 years ago, MLS slams the hammer down on Miami for breaking roster rules, not following the rules of the league, which the roster rules are stupid, but hey, you got in trouble because you broke the
We
rules.
had a good conversation last night, though, about how it has kept parity within the league, though.
Let's talk about it with Chris Wittyngham coming up next. He's from MLS Season Pass. He's on the call this weekend for the Revs in Miami with Lori Lindsay, a friend of the show as well.
Lori, shout out.
By the way, we had Chris on the show with the...
We're gonna have to talk about. I know he was right. He was right.
All right, we're back with more after this. Oh, hi, boys and girls. Welcome back to New England Soccer Weekly. You know what I thought about last night, by the way, while we were at that Revs event?
Tell me.
I thought Henry Kessler got married.
Yeah, no, Tom saw a ring.
Like, we're talking with Henry in the middle of a conversation. I look down at his hand. He's got a ring on his finger. I'm like, hey,
It was
did
on
you
his
get
right
married?
hand. It was on his right hand, first of all.
Oh,
And he was like, no, this is whatever ring.
It's an aura ring.
did you
Yeah.
say congratulations?
Yeah, I said,
He
hey,
did.
did you
He's
get
like,
married?
yeah, congrats.
Congratulations.
That is so Tommy.
Yeah,
That's
it
such a
was-
Tommy move.
It was great.
That was it did feel actually, a little on brand. I'm not gonna lie.
It was
Not a
I did
little, not a little,
Not gonna
very
lie,
on
It was
brand.
pretty perfect.
Shout out to Cass.
So I decided to share that from last night. Chris Wittyngham from MLS Season Pass is joining us once again. First return guest?
Second, Kalen Carr.
Kalen.
Yeah,
Kalen
Kalen
was
Carr
the
did
first
twice,
one.
yes.
So
Well,
Chris,
Kalen Carr is the mayor of Foxborough, so that's not surprising.
that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Him and Callum Williams. I think they've been
Yeah.
up here the
Well,
most.
actually,
so far.
Lori's been here a lot too.
You've done a lot of Revs games too, haven't you?
Yeah, it's my third trip to Foxborough and my fourth Revs game of the year. So I'm getting familiar with One Patriot Place.
There you go.
Oh, nice. Welcome. Stay a while, although, you're a part of knocking out our local Boston Celtics here and the fandom of your Miami.
And like really excited about it too, by the way.
Could
I
not-
mean, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, hey, you know what? If you're going to be in Foxborough, don't stay too long. There's not much that's there.
You know why,
So
Chris?
go to
You know
Boston
what?
to
You know
party.
when I knew the Heat were going to win when we finished our segment and Tom said he bet on the Celtics to win. That's when I knew we were in big
My-
trouble.
Can I tell you guys though? So the last time I was in New England, I'm actually kind of dreading because Game 4 is Friday night. I'll be in Foxborough by the time the game tips off. And the last time that I was there was 2 weeks ago. The Revs played Chicago Fire, bonkers game, finished 3-3. After the game, run back to our hotel, which is on the premises of Patriot Place, then run over to Bar Louie to watch the remainder of the Heat Celtics game. I'm obviously very nervous. It was Game 6, and it was 3-2 in favor of the Heat. I really thought or was it the home? Yeah, it was the home game. Yeah, so it was 3-2 in favor of the Heat. We run off to the bar. Everyone there is in Celtics green, is cheering on the Celtics. I'm the one Heat fan in the corner, and I do not want to draw any attention to myself until if and when Miami wins. And then 5 seconds left, Miami get the foul for the 3. Jimmy Butler makes all the free throws, and then that jerk Derek White makes the putback to make it 3-3 in the series. The entire bar goes crazy. I was apoplectic for a solid 2 hours. So Bar Louie, I'm not certain if I'm going back for Game 4 of Heat Nuggets because that place was a house of horrors for me when it comes to the Miami Heat.
Now, your bosses aren't listening, so don't worry. So you can tell us the truth here. But as a commentator and also being a fan of the Miami Heat, right? You're working in the middle of the game. But 2023, it's easier to stream games and whatnot. Guys do it at weddings
Don't
all the
get him
time.
in trouble,
what did you
Tom.
say? He was
Just
just
saying, do you have,
streaming the
do
game,
you have a
he's
phone
working.
off to the side and maybe just like,
He's a
side eye it
professional.
and
Well, it won't be on the
You
same time
know
as
what?
the Revs, though.
Actually, it would be because it would the game tips off at 8:30, but the Heat game's on Friday. So to answer your question, I have done that in the past, like the far past, and I realized that was very stupid. to potentially like stream a sporting event and have it off on a phone. Actually, at another place I work at down here, we have like sort of a quad box of all the cameras. And every once in a while, one of the announcers will ask, hey, can you put on like a big Heat game in one of the corners so that maybe I can see it? But no, I've decided this is bad for me. As a matter of fact, I put my phone in do not disturb. So I don't even get notifications at like at the end of the quarter. I resurface into the world at the end of the broadcast and I see what's going on. I could not do a game getting score notifications of another game that I care about.
That's very funny.
Yeah, well, you had the last laugh in Game 7 anyway, so Derek White tip-in means absolutely nothing now.
Yeah.
So
it hurt in the moment, though.
Oh, I can imagine.
So I got to ask you about, does the name Mike Ryan Ruiz sound familiar to you?
Yes, we worked together for a very long time on the Dan Levitard show, and we did a Chelsea podcast together, and we are very good friends.
All right, I think I think he thinks I offended him yesterday because we went back and forth on Twitter a little bit.
Oh boy.
Michael said, and we're just gonna get back to the Messi stuff as we were talking about in the first segment here, and I found this interesting because it feels like reality might not be all there for the Miami people today. As great as this is, we love it. We're very happy for you. You guys won. Take the victory lap. But I wonder if this sentiment is really percolating throughout the rest of the South Florida community. Quote from your best friend, Michael Ryan Ruiz. The Moss family saved Inter Miami deal from collapsing, built a stadium in record time, got a new Miami stadium deal voted on and negotiated, and now out-dueled with unimaginable resources to bring over the biggest name in sport, give them their flowers. Is that a little bit too much credit for Jorge Mas? Because without Apple, without Adidas, without MLS, this deal probably doesn't happen. I mean, doesn't it feel like Miami's almost irrelevant in this situation?
No, I don't.
Outside of the living area?
Yeah, I mean, the living area is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I do think that certainly those first facts are true. If you go back to the beginning, David Beckham sort of announced that he was going to take his ownership stake in MLS into Miami. And he had a very hard time finding a majority partner, and particularly a local partner that was going to help them work the politics of South Florida. And Jorge Mas very much came in at the 11th hour. Actually, the guy that very nearly was the majority owner of Inter Miami was Todd Boehly, who is now the majority owner of Chelsea. And that fell apart, and the search for a stadium obviously was very difficult. And Jorge Mas came in and at the 11th hour took a dinner because actually he was smarting from the fact that he didn't take over as owner of the Miami Marlins. He was in the ownership chase. He was actually more of a baseball guy at the beginning, but now he's really fully thrown himself into Inter Miami. So he saved the Miami project. The Fort Lauderdale stuff came together very quickly, and they had to put together a solution, and they did. And then the Miami Stadium stuff, that's several years worth of politics that Jorge Mas sort of orchestrated. And then the Miami thing, believe it or not, Jorge Mas was the lead on the negotiations for this. He was the one who was most often dealing with Jorge Messi, Lionel's father, and he was the guy that was really leading the charge on this, not just for the last 6 months when it became clear that he might leave PSG, but for several years, sort of routinely staying in touch and making this a reality. So yes, all this other stuff comes into play to make the financials work, and the league certainly threw themselves fully behind it. But I think Miami and their organization have to get a lot of credit for actually getting this over the line.
But how does Jorge Mas come into play here? What did Jorge Mas say to Don Garber and to the people at Apple that made them believe, okay, this is the guy that we can trust to bring over the most recognized name in sports in general right now?
Well, I think what he brought was the possibility, right? When you have the conversation with the Messi camp and the Messi camp is receptive and you've managed to put forward a vision of your club, you say to Don Garber and you say to the league and you say to Apple, you say to Adidas, hey, we have a chance at this. Can you help me out? Can we work together to get this done? Which, by the way, isn't terribly unfamiliar with how David Beckham arrived in the league in 2007. So I think what he brought was sort of the sales lead, as it were. I've got a chance here. I've got potential here, and then worked with all the other stakeholders to make it happen.
Yeah, it's not just the lead. He had some legs behind it, too. I mean, like you said, he kept the conversations alive for years. And then, when it kind of got to those final stages is when he obviously had to bring in Apple and MLS and Adidas and such.
For sure. That's exactly how it played out. And I think Jorge Mas deserves a huge amount of credit. I think, like you said, the Miami living area deserves an enormous amount of credit. And also, sort of the stars had to align. Because if Barcelona had money, I don't think Lionel Messi would be in Miami because I think he ultimately wanted to stay in Barcelona 2 years ago and wanted to come back now. But they don't have any money. They can't register contracts. They can't guarantee him that if he agreed to a deal with Barcelona, that he would stay. I'm really surprised that the Saudi thing, when the Athletics report came out on Tuesday night that it's down to Miami or Barcelona, I was like, really, the Saudis are just out. I wonder what happened there. But lifestyle choices, stars aligning, but Jorge must put in the work. He put in the graft in order to get this one over the line.
So we spent the first segment, Chris, talking a lot about what this Messi deal, 24 hours out now, how it shifts the look of MLS in our country and globally. So just your initial reaction now, 24 hours later, what that means to the league that you cover.
Yeah, I think you can sort of go by all the social media metrics that have Inter Miami gaining 4 million Instagram followers in 24 hours and
Wild.
gaining a few million Twitter followers along the way as well. But that's sort of very short term, right? That's the immediate attention that you're getting. To me, what's interesting is how does this manifest itself into the future? To me, the way that it manifests itself into the future is all of a sudden the other 28 teams realize, all right, we need to push forward. We need to bring about rules changes that we were going to bring about earlier. One of the things that was floated was getting the internal transfer market going so that maybe Miami can move things internally within the league to clear out roster space, increasing that salary cap, increasing the allocation money figures, increasing the overall spend. To me, I'm curious because David Beckham, 16 years on, you look at the difference between then and now. There were 13 teams then. There are 29 teams now. There is a significant media deal now. There are 22 soccer-specific stadia across the country. And I don't know, maybe Lionel Messi is that little bit of extra push that the Boston municipality needs to get a soccer stadium over the line. That you just don't know how these sorts of things can play themselves out. And I think the interesting thing to me is, okay, so obviously you have this big star who's going to generate a lot of attention by himself. How do you keep people for when Lionel Messi eventually departs? And I think when David Beckham came, there was enough of a legacy established. It generated enough interest in the Pacific Northwest and some of the clubs that came into the league around the late aughts and the early 2010s that all of a sudden they are now in big situations where they've got regular crowds that come in, week out. Is a similar effect going to happen when Lionel Messi goes on his tour across the country and goes to Chicago, which normally doesn't draw big crowds, but has already sold, I think, 10,000 more tickets for the Miami Fire game than had been sold previously? What is the lasting legacy of this, I think, is the big question.
We understand the financial benefit for the league. Obviously, teams around the league with the influx of ticket sales and, obviously MLS season pass, hoping for the subscriptions to go through the roof. We understand that part of it. From a competitive standpoint in the league, you've seen the league grow so much in, it's 26 plus years in existence now. Is Messi's, coming to Inter Miami, is that going to be enough to now be able to pull in more talent from Europe? Because there's still the prestige of playing in those leagues over there. I don't know. We're trying to, I guess, for the people who are wondering if this is going to change the competition in the league long term, do you think he has enough pull to make that happen again?
Well, remember, right now, concurrently, as Messi is coming to Miami, the Saudis are embarking on a project to bring over a lot of players that you think could be potential MLS targets, sort of later prime guys that are leaving their big European club for their next step. And Karim Benzema is going to Saudi Arabia, and N'Golo Kante and Cristiano Ronaldo, and a lot of guys that are going to command huge salaries in Saudi Arabia could potentially have been MLS targets. To me, the thing, and I think it's interesting when the Messi signing happens, the retirement league conversation starts up again. And you look at the makeup of the league, you guys follow the teams, you know that New England Revolution are not a retirement league team. They're a team that are comprised of veterans within MLS, but Noah Buck starts every week, and he's 18 years of age. And
Adam Buxa, Georgie Petrovic.
Right. The under 22 initiative is Barry Dylan Barrero before he got hurt. They're all kinds of guys that now I think reflect a different version of the league. I guess the question is, what does Messi coming raise the level of that sort of player? Are you getting better, younger prospects to come here instead of going to, let's say, Brighton in the Premier League or something like that, where a lot of guys are Borussia Dortmund, where they go now? Can you get guys that are a little bit younger, maybe prime 28, 29, 30, as opposed to 32, 33, 34? And ultimately, the answer to that is always money, right? And I think MLS will have to pay over the top to European leagues because right now that's where the best soccer is in the world. And I think a lot of players want to go and play at the very highest level. So ultimately the attraction is always money. Can you flatten out the salary so that there are more kind of high level players playing at every position in every team? There's a lot of things that you can solve, but ultimately the Messi boon is going to have to produce some of that stuff. And hopefully it can mean other big name friends come along and there's a new attraction coming to your town every weekend. But I think it's also raising the general level of MLS from 1 to 20 across all 29 teams.
I want to get to that about players coming over here in a second, because I think that's going to open up a larger conversation, because I think there's a whole new can of worms that just opened up yesterday that nobody's really talking about. A lot of things that nobody's really talking about that we keep on saying.
No one's talking about
talking about it. But anyway,
let's talk about them then.
It's ironic how that happens.
Well, I will start the fire of the flame that will burn through the rest of the week. Trust me. But here's the thing.
Put that on a T-shirt.
I will start the fire of the flame. It's such a stupid line. Beckham versus Messi. The difference, as we talked about in the first segment of our show here today, was Beckham, in my opinion, opened up American soccer in a different business way, and where you brought in the Tim Cahills, the Thierry Henrys, and a lot of European names. So, okay, there is a legitimacy here to MLS that it's not just this clown league. So that's what, in my opinion, David Beckham did. The Messi deal is bigger for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. David Beckham didn't have the advantage of social media 15 years ago. David Beckham didn't have the advantage of American sports betting 15 years ago. So I think those two combined, plus the Apple deal, because obviously there's no blackouts. You can watch the game anywhere around the globe, streaming. Those three things give MLS an advantage that I don't think they had with the Beckham deal, which is where we find out how this opens up a whole new landscape for MLS. I think financially they're going to see a big benefit sooner than they expect, in my opinion, because of the social media gambling aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think certainly Lionel Messi will be in the face of American sports fans way more than, David Beckham also came about probably in a bigger time in ESPN. I know that sounds like a sort of very small point, but ESPN sort of was ubiquitous in 2007 in a way that I just don't think it is now. And I think that Lionel Messi, by virtue of that social media, he was all over yesterday. He's in your face. But the question is, in the sort of very thin attention economy, right? You're not just dealing with sporting entities. You're dealing with Instagram Reels and TikTok and Facebook and all of the things that we have commanding our attention. Is Lionel Messi going to get people to do that every week? Is he going to not only just do that for Inter Miami, because when Inter Miami play, there will certainly be plenty of tension, but will he sort of bring that attention to the league writ large? Will other teams see that benefit when they aren't connected to Lionel Messi? I think the subscription stuff with MLS Season Pass is enormous. Like you said, the fact that it's global, the fact that in Argentina there will be people that are huge Lionel Messi fans that want to watch him. You'll get people that are curious, right? That were MLS curious maybe in the country. I had a few people text me yesterday. I'm getting the plan now. I'm getting MLS Season Pass because I want to see this. I want to see what this looks like. But it's also a really compelling product, in my view, for the other 28 teams in the league. So can you get people to stick around and watch those games? Ultimately, you're right. With sports gambling, with social media, it has the potential to have that big reach. But ultimately, in the ADD, very difficult to capture people's attention, is it actually going to cut through in the way that big sporting events in this country do? And I do think that, like, you go back to 2007, I remember I was 15 years old turning on the TV when David Beckham played his first game for the Galaxy, because that was one of those big events that captured my attention. I think Lionel Messi will be the same thing, but I think it would really help too if he hit the ground running and scored a bunch of goals and was like, whoa, this superstar is being a superstar in our league every week, to really get people to tune in every week.
Couple more things. Part of my gripe session today.
Oh, boy. Can't we just have nice things for once?
I know, but I have to point it out. I have to point
we
out
didn't even
the obvious.
we didn't even lead Chris in. You just went right at him about one of his friends. Like there's levels to this. But go ahead.
He's a recurring guest.
Okay.
You got to be nice.
The next problem I have with this Messi deal. A couple years ago, Miami gets a big slap on the wrist for breaking roster rules. Okay? Which, by the way, for what it's worth, for the record, Mr. Speaker, I didn't have a problem with David Beckham being ambitious and wanting to build the best roster possible. I think that's what you needed to show Messi to get him over here. So I thought that was a good thing. But MLS slapped Miami on the wrist regardless, because they broke the designated player rule. They went above and beyond. They broke up a bunch of roster rules, and they got sanctioned for it. Fast forward 2 years, MLS is hand-holding Miami to the finish line on the Messi deal. So isn't there a little bit of hypocrisy there? If I'm a fan of Real Salt Lake, granted, Messi's never going to Salt Lake, but shouldn't I be a little bit angry today? Shouldn't I be angry today as a Revolution fan to watch Miami, the rich get richer? Last year, Gareth Bale comes in MLS as a TAM player. In no other year in this freaking league's stupid roster rule existence would Gareth Bale have ever have been a TAM player. He's a TAM player because he wanted to go to LAFC. If MLS is going to do this with Miami, I think they have to open up the door. You've got to open up the door to everybody now. Get rid of the designated player rule. Screw TAM. Screw GAM. Now we're all in.
Poor guys.
If Angel Di Maria is going to go play with Messi and probably come under the TAM designation, what are we doing here? What are we doing here with these roster rules?
Yeah, I mean, and the Galaxy just got slapped with the fine as well for the Christian Pavone deal. But this has sort of always been the case in the league. And I mean, originally the Galaxy were the team that sort of drew all that criticism, right? Remember, TAM came in because they had built together a 3DP roster and they wanted to keep current New England center back Omar Gonzalez. And they had to pay him more than was the maximum salary at the time. So they came up with this allocation money mechanism, and that's led to greater spending. So I would sort of present the positive version in this way. Whenever these instances have happened, right, even David Beckham coming in 2007 created the designated player rule. Then eventually they wanted to surround him with better teammates. And so 3 designated players came in. And then, as I mentioned, the allocation money comes in. I think ultimately these moves do push the league forward because there is sort of this recognition that the cap that we are putting on it is artificially limiting the capacity of teams that have greater ambition. So I do think in the long run, that does result in growth. But I do understand your point. And I also sort of understand the point, which is obviously Messi coming to the league is very good for the league. And all 29 owners own a 29th of MLS. And they have their MLS franchise. Remember, it's a single entity structure. And so Lionel Messi coming to MLS is good for all 29 owners. However, I do understand from sort of a fan standpoint, like the notion that, well, if the league is getting involved, which, by the way, the league is not contributing any dollars to this. Obviously, their partners are, which is a distinction worth making. But
there's promises for him to have financial investment after he retires. He's gonna get some kickback from the league after he's out.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll see. But I do think that ultimately it's good for the league. But I understand from a competitive standpoint, if you're New York City, if you're New York Red Bulls, if you're LAFC, if you're the Galaxy, realistically, it's those 3 big markets that would have the chance to land a star of this size. That you'd be going, wait a second, why couldn't we be the team that you sort of aided? But Miami, like I said, Jorge Mas brings you the lead, and you're the commissioner, Don Garber. Yeah, you've given them sanctions, but I mean, what are you going to say? No, you committed those sanctions, so we're not going to have Lionel Messi be a transformative figure in our league. Like, that's insane. So, of course, it's all hands on deck to try and get it over the line.
Sure, absolutely, and that's fair play to you. But at the same time, I just think there's some sort of ridiculousness and irony that if you are following this stuff and you are following how demonized Miami was made out to be after all of that, it's very funny.
But it's also, I mean, you got to think most likely at the owner's discretion anyways. I mean, any team could do what Miami did. They just don't have the same attraction that Miami has. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's really what can happen throughout the whole league if they had the pull that Miami does, the surroundings.
That's why we're talking about Miami and LA as a team.
Exactly. Foxborough and Canton, Massachusetts.
Well, we did, if you remember back before Ronaldo signed the Saudi deal, Kansas City was kind of being thrown around there.
That is true. And Mike almost moved there. It was wild.
I was going to follow the plane.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was Kansas City, which sort of goes to show if you present a serious enough offer, like they almost got Ronaldo over the line, which would have been remarkable. So I do think it's on for the 29 teams. I just think it's probably easier in the bigger and sexier markets, as it were.
How great would it have been, Chris, if it was this weekend, though?
Oh, man. I sort of get the good fortune. There's already been some conversation in the commentator community of the assignments, who gets the Messi games and all that stuff. And
is Twellman muscling his way to that one?
I think he's going to get it. He's going to get it. It's
right.
who's going to be with him.
Tolman's gonna see a fair bit of Miami, I would imagine. But the jockeying for position is it's jokingly underway. I mean, ultimately we're in no control of where we go. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. It'd be cool if I get a Miami game, and it's still cool even this Saturday, even though he's not going to play in the game, to like sort of tell that story over the course of the game and be like, hey. Yeah. Did a bunch of Revs fans buy tickets thinking that Messi's going to be here?
To Chris's point too, that I didn't even think about that. There are people that have bought MLS season pass now that are going to tune into this game this weekend to hear what he has to say and break the story down throughout the entire broadcast. That's a big spot.
No pressure.
Or be confused that he's not here already.
and to answer your question, they actually sold over 30,000 before the Messi announcement, and they picked up a few thousand more yesterday. So
brilliant.
And
yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I was in for the Chicago game, and there was a really good crowd that night. There was like a whole fireworks show after the game, and it was really awesome.
Because the weather's might be
horrible start for the Revs. By the way,
it's been increasing, and I can imagine it will continue to now that the league has a buzz as a whole right now, and I think that'll help the league, even whether he's in the stadium or not. And I guess we're still trying to figure out. We've seen conflicting not reports, but just kind of like ideas that when would you expect Messi to be available to play? I know he's with PSG till June 30th, and then will it be before the end of the season or start of next season?
Oh, for sure, yeah. So the transfer window opens on July 5th, and it really sort of depends on sort of his timeline for going through a preseason and getting back to sort of game fitness. League's Cup has been floated out there. Inter Miami, I think on the opening day, have a game against Cruz Azul, which are one of the giants in Mexico, and then they have a home game in Atlanta against Atlanta United in the group stage as well. So, and then I think before we even resume league play, which I think is August 20th, Miami are in an Open Cup semifinal against Cincinnati. Actually, I think as we're speaking right now, the draw is taking place of where that game is going to be located. So I do think that an Open Cup semifinal with Messi could potentially be a big one as well.
That'd be incredible.
If you get an Open Cup semifinal with Messi in it, there's no way in hell is that game played in Fort Lauderdale. You're gonna have to play that one at Hard Rock. I don't see.
I'm telling you, I would be surprised if they played a single game at Hard Rock.
Really?
I think all these games will be at Drive Pink. Yep.
Wow. Why? But the money that Miami would make.
I know. I just think that the way that those two organizations have worked in the past, I don't think, and also like Miami controls their venue, right? They built their venue because that's their home and they control their revenues there. And I just think that they're going to beef up that stadium. The Miami Herald reported yesterday that they're going to add, I think, another 2,500 to 3,000 seats to get the capacity up a little bit. And they're going to make that place as big as it can feel every time Messi plays in it.
The resale on those tickets.
But all right, so despite the bad blood, would you agree that playing in Hard Rock would probably be the rational decision?
I mean, yeah, you'd probably want to have 65,000 people as opposed to 20,000. But, I mean, it's also your place, right? Like, in some ways, I had San Jose earlier this year. They played one game, a one-off at home at the 49ers place against LAFC. And while they won the game, I don't think they were nearly the same team. And they played a different style than they do normally at their usual home. There is something to playing at your place. If you play at Hard Rock, that's not your home. That's not where you're used to playing. Yeah. So from a whole field standpoint, I think that certainly changes the dynamic.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you for coming on the show today. Tell Michael we want peace, but if we have to go to war, I am ready.
No, he is ready.
No, we're past that.
Listen, we love Tom, but when Tom goes off on his Twitter beefs, we just let him cook.
Yeah,
right? So,
that's not this side. But shout out to you.
Yeah. By the way, Jorge Mas owes us for giving away the Revs stadium just to sell the Miami politicians, and the Revs never got their stadium. So we're happy that he was able to use New England to get his stadium down there in Miami.
He's not bitter or anything, Chris.
Not bitter or anything about this.
Just go through the tweets. But, Chris, as we're wrapping up, just tell people again how they can get the MLS season pass and about the game you're calling on Saturday night.
Go to the Apple TV app on any device that you may have. Go to the MLS season pass section. I believe it's 50% off for the remainder of the season. And get it today because Lionel Messi will be playing on it soon. So MLS season pass on Apple TV. Check it out. I'll be on the call with Lori Lindsay on Saturday for the Revs and Inter Miami.
All right, Chris Wittyngham.
Tell Lori we said what up, too.
Yes.
Yeah. That's our pal.
Very stylish,
Will
Roy
do.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Chris Wittyngham, thank you so much. Appreciate the time. That does it for us here on New England Soccer Weekly this week. We're out of here, boys and girls.
Bruce.
Great. Thank you.